Welcome to the first edition of Rhyme and Reason. This is a partnership that we have as Down River Road with Somanami Books, and we hope that we'll be doing this on a more regular basis to sort of just meet some of the writers that we get to work with, some of the writers that we publish, and whose work we really enjoy, to sort of talk about some of the things like behind the scenes of what happens in the writing business and talk a bit about publishing. My name is Franklin Sunday. I am one of the editors of Down River Road. Today we have Michael Onsando. Michael Onsando is a Nairobi-based writer. His latest book, The Perilous Journey to Beyond My Nose, was released in October 2020 by DRR. The Perilous Journey to Beyond My Nose is his third poetry collection, and it's an explorative long-form poem that seeks to understand the internal landscape using vivid external imagery. And the book is written in 4 parts, with each section exploring a singular part of the journey. Linda Musita is a Nairobi-based writer. She has published several short stories. Most recently, with Down River Road, we published Linda's story on our first issue, Place, and also on our online issues. And we are also publishing her short story collection, her debut short story collection, Mtama Road, which is set in Parklands, Nairobi. It's coming out in the next couple of weeks. And we are actually starting pre-orders today, so make sure you sign up to get a copy. So when you talk about a Nairobi-based writer, I want to start with you, Linda. You have written quite a bit of fiction based on Nairobi, and Mtama Road, I've read Mtama Road, and by the way, you guys are in for a treat. Mtama Road is really an interesting collection, and it talks about basically growing up in Parklands, and it's told from this perspective of a young girl, but you can also see all the nostalgia, all the histories in there, like the craft is top notch. So I just want to maybe start from why do you sort of approach, or why do you choose to use fiction to like render these memories, and why do you return to that voice of a young girl in this particular short story collection and in your other stories?
Okay, I think most of my work is actually nostalgic, but I choose nostalgia because I feel the time in which I grew up, I've not seen it reflected in any fictions about Nairobi. It's usually either a story about robbery, a story about the streets, but it never reflects how I grew up in the 90s. So that's why I go back to what I experienced as a little girl, back to the music, back to the games we played, back to how we were raised, because born 80s, growing up in 90s, we know we know how life was. Our parents raised us in a particular way. They required certain things of us that we couldn't even talk about then. You'd go through things inside your body, inside your head, but you can't voice it out to anyone. So this is like my time to finally say those things that I wanted to say back, but I can't say what I used to feel, but I couldn't articulate that as much as I maybe should have as a child, because I feel like the kids we have now, like Gen Alpha, they can tell you. My son can come and tell me, you've pissed me off, say sorry. I can't, I couldn't do that. So how, especially in Mtama Road, it's a lot about the things I couldn't communicate, how I was feeling about, let's say, the boys around me, my hair at that point, because my hair was in the hands of my mother always. I didn't have a say about what I could do with my hair, how I could. If I wanted to cut it, she would let me. If I didn't want to cut it, she cut it. So those are the things that, going back to the voice of the little girl, that I haven't seen anywhere else. Yeah. And also, for Mtama Road, it's the only part of Parklands. It's the street I grew up, the road. It's not even a street. It's the road I grew up. It's the only place in Parklands that hasn't changed at all. So everything else is the high-rises, apartments. That road still has the same potholes, it still has the same houses, it still has the same plants. I go back to it. As I was writing, I kept going back, walking, I think like twice a week, just walking. It's the same thing. It's the only street that reminds me of where I came from. So that's the nostalgic bit, and the voice of the girl. It's fiction. It's not me, by the way. When you read it, don't say that's her. No, it's not me. Fiction.
Yeah, actually, that's an important distinction to make because the stories are so vivid, and you might be remiss if you know Linda, you might be remiss to think that that's her speaking as the persona, but it's a completely different, like, new voice and quite rich. Thank you for that. And I think to Michael, you know, a version of that question would be for Perilous. It's like this exploratory poem, if I may put it that way. And it's one of the very interesting books that you published because visually, first of all, the language is very, very visual. And then Michael worked with this illustrator called Rosie, who is also very talented. So I just want to maybe ask you, you know, how you settled on choosing this mixed medium to sort of tell your story, and how you sort of render this memory and just sort of plot it on one single poem broken into 4 parts, as opposed to maybe using fiction, for example, which some people might say might be easier, I don't know, quote unquote, depending on where you sit. So yeah, maybe just talk a bit about your medium.
Yeah, first of all, of course, fiction is easier. Like, what do you mean? No. I'm just talking. I'm just talking trash. The thing about Perilous for me, and no, actually, just to answer the question directly, I've always been writing like this. If you read, well, for the 2.5 people, excluding my mom, who've read both my books, right? The first book was a lot shorter, but if you notice, it's a similar style, right? I keep telling people I don't know how to write collections of poems. So what I do is I write poems on the internet, and then I write long poems, and the long poems, I make them books. So it's a style I've been working on for years, and it's a style I will definitely continue to write in, because like it's I can talk for hours about like influences, where I've drawn things from, you know, the poets, for example. This idea of like writing letters and adding letters to poetry really comes from this guy called Jack Spicer, right? And Jack Spicer used to write these beautiful letters in his books, and his letters he was writing them to dead people, to other writers who will never respond. You know, like, it's like you stand up today and say, I'm going to write a letter to Chinua Achebe. Like, and then you're going to, like, what are you doing, right? And he'd put them in his poetry, but there'd be these deliberations on, like, the art of writing, the craft of writing, or, like, where he is, and these philosophical things. And then there's Saul Williams, whose books are like heavily visual, right? You open his books, and like the first page is black. First of all, you open a book, the page is black. It's not white. You're a bit confused for a bit, and then like there's a lot of visual stuff happening in there. And then there's, you know, old poets, people like Rudyard Kipling. There's our favorite guy from Uganda, the guy for Building the Nation. Yeah, so there's a lot of people in that in terms of influences, of stylistic influences, yeah. And then of course in terms of thematic influences, it's really just my demons, yeah. So yeah, all the fuel any writer needs. So yeah, I think that's what influences style, and obviously it's a style I'm developing in and trying to grow, but it really is a particular style and way of writing that I'm trying to craft out as my own and like create as a way I write my poetry. Yeah. Who are my demons? I don't think we have enough time. Ooh, there's a poem about that actually. Nkare published it. It's called How to Now. It's 16 pages long. It actually outlines step by step with footnotes each of my demons.
All right, okay. So we're going to get into demons in a bit, and I'm going to ask both of them to read an excerpt from their work in the next few minutes. I think maybe the question now maybe we'd like to ask you is, like, both of you guys have been publishing in Nairobi for a long time. I think easily more than 10 years for both of you. Like, we started working with you guys kitambo sana. So I'll start again with you, Bike, because this is your third collection of poetry. Maybe you can just talk a bit, because I know there's someone in the audience who's looking to publish a book at the moment. Just talk a bit about your experience of publishing Perilous, the progression from the second book to the third one, and, you know, if there are any lessons that stand out to you that you'd want to share. Yeah.
So I feel like I could give a lecture series on the publishing industry in Kenya, but I feel like every writer, even people who are here now, like Odu are here, like the guys who guys who understand like what we're going through. But I don't think it's just publishing, right? I think it's talent infrastructure in the country. I play rugby with Kenya Harlequins, and it's the same thing. You see massive talent, but just because of the environment and where it creates, maybe not enough opportunity, maybe not enough people who should be in a certain place aren't there. And of course, also scarcity of opportunity means that there are people who are left out, who shouldn't be. It's called The Making of a Canon, that poem. That poem published by Nkari, it's called The Making of a Canon. Yes, it's not called How to, it's called The Making of a Canon. This side came because I was thinking that people who are left out who should be left in, and that's what canons are, right? Canons include and exclude. And so publishing in Kenya is weird, right? But I do think like the gems that shine through. You know, we have House of Rust, which I think is doing pretty decently. We have the greats, the people you talk about, you know, the Binyas and the Yvonnes of this world. And I think the biggest problem we have particularly is because everyone in there is trying to do something, and because there's only so much space, it's almost like there's a latent frustration around everyone, because we're just like, it could be so good, like there's so much that needs to be done, and you know, kazi ni mingi masaa ni machache. And I think that's the state of Kenyan publishing. But I think anyone who goes into it, like, you need to go into the still heart, and like knowing that you're going to contribute to something. You're going to be one of those older men who are planting trees in which shade they will not sit for their children, because like that's what it is. Because it's easy to sit here and be bitter and be like, things aren't working. But if you ask yourself, why aren't things working, and what are you looking at, then that's and what role can I play? Which is why I really admire Clifton, because like this conversation we're having, right? Like, what role can I play in like bettering the space? So that is the state of publishing in Kenya. It's young.
Interesting. And for Linda, you were part of Leslie, which is like a publishing offshoot some time back. You have some experience in that, and then you also published a short story collection called Fifth Draft. It's also in circulation. Can talk a bit about that, and then, you know, just tell us what you learned about publishing in this our Nairobi.
Wow. Leslie, I remember Leslie, there was a progression before, there's a history before Leslie that we can't throw out. Because I remember like when we started writing, me, Michael, Kina Clifton, Kina Mwangi, there was no space for us for the type of things we were writing. It was between Story Moja and Kwani, and the things we were writing, like there was no room, and I'm not saying it in a bad way. There was no room for the type of work we were doing. So we used to publish a lot on Facebook. I think that's how all of us, like from 2009, 2010, everyone used to post on, I don't know if that still exists, like you can publish on Facebook, and then people comment.
Facebook notes.
Yeah, Facebook notes. And then people comment, you get some confidence. The next day you put something, people comment. The ones who put exclamation marks are there, then you're like, what is this person trying to tell me? That you gauge as maybe this didn't hit as much as it did. And then I think that gave us confidence to actually believe that we could write at the time, because there was a huge writing community. We were publishing a lot on Facebook, and at some point there was an argument of publishing on Facebook is not publishing. There was some highbrow local people conversation about publishing on Facebook, but that was the space we started in. That was the space we found our voices, we honed our craft, we developed our skills. And then after that, there was for me, there was a Princess Project that still came through the people we met on Facebook. So there was collaborative writing, and it's amazing that Juliet Maruru, people don't mention her a lot in the writing industry, but she gave us something. She gave us space. So like collaborative writing, there was this story, it was based on her, but like every week she would invite a bunch of writers to continue the story. So like if you wanted, it was like a sort of like a TV series or something, but it was fiction, which was so amazing for that time. So like if I write this if I write this section of a story this week, Michael, who doesn't write fiction, hates fiction, can't stand fiction, would continue with the story. And then it was such a good thing. Then from that, Juliet figured we could start like a literary agency, because she was very passionate. And aside from that, she also gave us space on the Story Moja blog. It was a WordPress blog, I remember. So most of our stories are there, like back when you could just write anything. Like she'd tell you, just write whatever you want. And then she created like weekly prizes for us, like you'd win like 2K or a ticket to the Story Moja Hay Festival. So I remember that festival was just like, it was so important to us. Like we'd go meet writers, we'd see like African writers we never knew even existed. We'd see writers from like Scotland, Netherlands, some Scandinavian countries that we never even imagined had writers. So that was great exposure for us. Like she gave us opportunities. Like imagine that time as a writer getting 2K, man. That was fun. You go to the cyber.
and even not just the 2K, right? Like even just like I remember this Infinite Riches Benokri. I remember Benokri was here, right? And I was because I was interning at the festival that time, and we all were, right? Like, because we just all wanted to be near those writers, and I was his handler for a whole weekend. And so, like, I literally spent a whole weekend just following Benokri around. And, like, I guess he was following me around, but we were following each other. But, like, yeah, but, like, the experience it brought, like, I think what many writers now some of whom went as far as, like, to really, like, disparage that festival online. Many of them actually owe their careers to that festival. Yeah.
So after that, then so now after the Princess Project, now Juliet figured we could start me, her, Ndutawaweru, and Hiram. Hiram was to handle the art aspects of. It was supposed to be a lit agency. So we started well. We had we got some writers, we got some artists, but pitching to Kenyan publishers is a chaotic, heartbreaking experience, because you send them a manuscript first. Either the email doesn't work, either they don't respond, or they tell you there's too much sex in this story, there's too much violence in this story, there's things that what would they say, like we want fiction for young adults, like teenagers in high school, but but what like Belonging in Africa, we were told it's essentially it starts as a coming of age story with this young girl who's smoking. She has a boyfriend, but these are things, I think there's a certain denial in Kenya. These are things that these teenagers do. So if even if you don't put it in books that they can see, they're still doing it. It's not something that's strange to them. So they would say, going back to the type of things we write, they don't want them. So at some point, we lost track of what Leslie was meant to be for. Initially, it was meant to be for writers, to push writers, to do workshops, to do mentorships and stuff like that. We lost track, and I think that was the biggest mistake we made, and published. Yeah, I think that for me, I can speak for myself, because that wasn't the initial intention. That wasn't Juliet's intention. So when we started publishing, first of all, selling, we try to be innovative. So you're trying to sell books to bookshops. I remember it was Textbook Center. So you take the books and then they just disappear from the system. You try to track things, you can't. Your books just disappear. You try and follow up. You go to Kijabe Street, the main office. You go ask questions. Unazungushwa mpaka you're like, okay, fine, just keep them. And then, so seeing that the bookshop model wasn't working, because at the time I think they were taking 40%. Yes. 40%. Yeah, it was 40%. Yeah, so we said it, and then it's like when you like the way you do your own bookshop survey, you go, you don't see the books on the shelves. So you're wondering,
What's the 40%?
I gave you books. Where are they? Have you sold them? Tell me. If they're not on the shelves, then where exactly are they? Because if you've sold them, then give me just whatever you're giving me, give me. And then I think that time they had to give you a check. So they tell you the check is below. Hey man, it's Nairobi. The check is the check is 1,000. The chips only sold 2 books, so the check is like 1K. We can't write a check for 1K. So wait, but where are the books? I can't see them on the shelves. Then we got tired of that. Then we tried to sell with the street vendors. Yes, we said here. And that was with Belonging in Africa. Thankfully, the author was open to that. So we take the book to street, the dreamer in us. We take the books to street vendors. They tell you, give it to us for 100 bob. So we tried. So we took to, I remember it was Tomboya Street. We took to them. It was nice, like when you pass the street, you see the book, you're like, wow, it's there. But then just even selling that story was a bit, we needed more. There's a time we thought about giving out flyers. Then you're told you have to go to Kanjo to get a permit. So you don't have money to get the permit. You can't give out flyers. We tried doing, I remember WLL, World's Loudest Library, was doing that thing of you leave a book somewhere. So we figured maybe you can do that and then lead someone to buying. I don't know, there was a very idealistic approach to, at that time, like we were very hopeful. I think I was particularly very hopeful with the world. And then, so that didn't work. So we started doing events, like, I remember going to the Alchemist one time with books.
What have you not done for books?
I know, what have I not done for books? And I remember that was 5th Draft, which was a collection of short stories with amazing writers. Who are not writing now. I hope that's not the reason. I haven't seen much from them lately. Actually, maybe Rahab, who still has her blog, but at some point it kills you. So now the dynamics of that one, we got funding from Sefa to do the book through Zukiswa. So they paid for the printing, the publishing, the editing. And then the book sales, we were supposed to split it between the writers. There were like 11 writers. The book is 500 shillings. So if I go to an event and then I sell like 10 books, I have to sit down in the evening with my phone, 2,500 split it, because I don't want to sit with people's money. You know, when you sit with people's book money, it can come and haunt you. So you have to split it. You divide that 2,500 divide by 11, and then you send to every number. There are like 11 people. So at some I still have those books in my house. So it's not easy to publish in this country, in Nairobi. But what he was saying, the thing that you've done for others, I think that's very important. But it literally, I can't publish even my own book. I can't do it myself.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
Like just one more before we go into the reading break, into reading breaks and stuff, is that I remember there's this time when Chima was expecting, and then she did this interview with the Financial Times, and then I remember she was talking about performing pregnancy and why she didn't want to appear pregnant in public. And so Linda wrote this amazing story. I don't know how many have read it. Really interesting. A really interesting story. And from our conversations and previous conversations with other writers, it's like in Nairobi, to publish, you have to be part of, to build the infrastructure, and then like you are also publishing and you are also building the publishing infrastructure. And like Linda's story really captured this, like trying to publish 5th Draft while expecting. And Linda is also a practicing lawyer. Michael here plays rugby. So my question is, having to sort of walk this tightrope and wear these many hats, what does it do to your writing? Do you feel that you have to exert yourself somewhat? Do you feel like you have to like perform or dance a bit, or has it become easier? You know, how is it? We can start from you.
Yeah, I was laughing because I have several thoughts on the matter. So I was actually just having this exact conversation with Linda and Clifton before we started off, talking about how I write better when I'm distracted by many things. So the fact that I have to do all these things besides write keep me distracted and keep me on point with the writing. But I can't say now, going back to the publishing journey and what she said she can't publish. I definitely feel like my last journey with Perilous left me really thinking how involved I want to be in the publishing sides of things, because especially if it's like your own work, because like the distance you need to look at our work objectively and be like, this is what needs to be done, this is how it needs to be, whatever, this might take some time, this is the distance you need to, you can't actually build it in action when you're like, my baby, so it's a bit complicated. So I think that's what it is. I think at the end of the day, it's the way you're saying, like you have to do all the things and it will affect your writing, which is why I think that's exactly what you should do, like that story, right? The truth is, because we write, if you're not writing truth, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're not writing truth, what are you doing? And if that's the truth that is, then you write that truth out, right? Because at the end of the day, we try to look at other economies, maybe in other countries, and say, the industries are better built than us, are better established than us. But like, if you think of the people even you here consider the greats, they were writing in conditions like ours. Like James Baldwin wasn't writing in an established writing industry, you know what I'm saying? So just I guess a bit crass, but like appreciate that's the stuff that makes diamonds. Yeah.
Okay. And Linda, what do you think?
Yeah, that I remember wanting to print books and asking around and being told you have to go to India, and then when you print in India, you have to print like 10,000 copies at a go, and you can't sell 10,000 copies here, because I know there was a publisher who'd done that, and I think most of them still have those books in their warehouses. So the other alternative was, I remember I was very pregnant. I was like, wow, I was very, very pregnant. And going from Kirinyaga Road to Mombasa Road, uko nyuma ya nini, inaitwaje, Isuzu? Is it Isuzu? GM uko, yeah. Going behind that, there was a printer over there. And I remember that's why that performing pregnancy thing really hurt my feelings, because I was like, where? I went to this, I think it was Color Print, the main factory. I remember the guard asking me, wewe umekuja hapa na mimba yako kutafuta nini? I'm thinking, let's focus on, my feet were swollen, but it was something that needed to be done, and I was the only one who could do it. And it's like what he's saying, there's like no infrastructure that would like support such an endeavor. If you want to print, nobody knows where to print books. You have to know someone who knows someone who knows someone who may not give you the number of the printer. So that and then so I won't go to whatever Chimamanda said in an article, but for purposes of publishing and what I mentioned, like just that aspect of not having, first of all, even if you do the 10,000 copies in India, when you bring them here, you'll have to keep, like, let's say 9,500 of those copies in your house, because they wouldn't at the time, you probably sell 500 books at most. So just the lack of infrastructure. But even like starting out, I give up. I can't do that stuff anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, so how we're going to.
It feels like it's not enough just to write, to be a writer, that you have to do all the other shit.
The business of it,
Yeah. So is that what you're telling? Like, so for instance, for your next projects, if you approach a Kenyan publisher, you'll also be, I don't know, expected to be your own editor, your own marketing, to do your own marketing shit. That's just what I'm asking. Like, so like younger people who want to write at the moment, right now, in the country, and they have their manuscripts and they want to come to DRR, they want to go to Story Moja, like, what would you tell them?
So yes, that's exactly what it is, right? And I'm going to talk again about rugby, because the reason I'm talking about rugby is because we like to localize the problem and feel like, oh, writing, we're really suffering. But you have to understand, like, we're not just in a young industry, we're in a country where talent industries are quite young, like, in general, right? So I'm going to go to rugby. So I play,
Captain.
I was going to say that.
You're going to say it. You are going to say it.
If I was playing in a similar club in Britain, right, I wouldn't have to have a job, right? And in fact, the fact that I can play rugby and be a writer's publishing books, guys are like, what's going on? But also, that's also because of the youth of all the economies we have here, right? And so the thing about rugby, so if I'm playing rugby there, the similar number 4 in London, Kenya Harlequins, has a nutritionist, has a specialized gym instructor, has a program they must live on, has a coach for everything. A coach how to kick the ball, a coach how to catch the ball, a coach how to carry the ball into contact, a coach how to look at people. You know, like, he's well trained, right? By the time he's going onto the pitch, he's like another level of athlete, and I can't compete with him, right? And he's gone through many iterations of this, because he's gone through a youth academy, he's played many games, so I think that's the same thing here, right? Like, same thing here is your counterpart writer in another economy has so much support around them, has gone through so many iterations, like even in terms of process of publishing, right? My 4th book will be much better than my 3rd book. My 5th book, just because the fact that I've published a book, I know so much more even about, by the time I would be waiting to, and I mean this in no offense to anyone, right? But by the time I'd be waiting to maybe win the Kane Prize when I'm 50, so I can start publishing my 1st book. You know, I feel like a lot of African writers are waiting to, or 60, you know, because I have to first decide to write fiction. And then learn how to write it, right? And I mean this again, no shame on Kane Prize winners. Like, it's a good prestige, right? But it's one prize. Maybe there are 5 of them, right? We are thousands of writers, right? How many opportunities are you going to get? When are you going to go to the iterative process of do and do again and do again? So absolutely, to a young writer, it is not enough to write. But I'm writing, applying, rejecting. You'll wait by the time you actually see growth, because you're still writing the same thing. No one's editing you. No one's giving you feedback. It's that story you're writing. You're not growing, right? So you have to put yourself out there, fail publicly, and grow. Otherwise, tunadu.
I remember in 2013, that same Lit Fest, we were sitting somewhere, and then there's a literary critic who said, if you don't have a book, you're not an author, you're not a writer. And I took that very, very personally. And I think from 2014, I was like, what do you what do you mean? I know I can write. I know I'm a writer. I've been called a writer before. I've been on panels in this same festival years before as a writer. Why are you saying that if I don't have a book, then I'm not a writer? So after that, and if you've read my short stories after 2014, I was like, I'm not leaving anything behind. I'm taking everything into this one story. It has to be really good. It has to be, someone has to see this story and say, you has to see this story and say, this person doesn't have a book, but they're writing something. They're not, and then I think it's that, because there's so much space online for young writers to get. There's a lot of spaces. DRR, there was Encourage, there's Lolwe. That's the reason I mainly write short stories. I'm not so bothered about having my, and I think I said that somewhere else. I'm not so bothered about having my name on a book, but as long as you know that I can write, and I've written a story that will stay in your head forever. It will not leave you. Wherever you go, I will be there with you. So that's the other thing that I think don't focus. So it's good to have a book, Michael. I love that you have your books. I love your books so much. You know that, but that won't work for everyone. That's not everyone else's path. And I think we need to tell the younger ones that it's not just a book that makes you a writer. It's not just, and publishing is not just being published in a book. You can be published in several journals. We were talking about Atticus, To Kill a Mockingbird. Like it's not Atwood. What's her name? Hapali. Yes, she only wrote one book, and that book was enough. Like 2. Okay. I don't. For some reason, I don't see the second one, but I have it, but I don't see it. But it's just to think about publishing. I know people say talent is not enough. I think talent is enough. Yeah, just to avoid, because I tried when I was in the business of publishing and writing, I didn't write anything for myself, and that I'm usually at my worst when I can't produce, and then I start feeling jealous. I'm like, jealous people. I'm like, why is
Yeah, and I mean, just to clarify, when I meant put yourself out there and fail publicly, I didn't mean publish a book, right? Although publishing a book is one way, like, because of the book has been a medium, right, through the history for the writer, right? And even you, hata unatoa yako. But like, at the end of the day, what I was saying is, you have to do more than just write. And we say this in everywhere, like, hard work beats talent day in, day out. Yeah, like, talent iko sawa, but if you're talented in your house sleeping, where sleep to?
Yeah. So I want to invite, before we go to Q&As, I want to invite Michael and Linda to read short excerpts from their work, and then we'll open the floor to a Q&A session. So Michael.
I'm not sure what you guys will feel about this poem, but then again, I'm used to that feeling. This is even news to Frank, but like, I've just finished up, well, I finished up a while back a like short manuscript. The provocation I like to start this off with is we have a lot of conversations with the assumption that we exist. Like, you're talking to me here assuming that Frank Sunday exists. But like, if we tear it apart, there's no Frank Sunday. There's just layers and layers of stuff, right? Which we can go into. But like, I think this poem will help explain that concept. Sorry, I was looking it up. And so what if it's to no one else's benefit other than your own? Whose benefit were you expecting to be working towards? Over whose soul do you hold custody that it may get to the shore? Did you not get unconquerable from your mother? Is it not your father's patience that courses through your veins? Perhaps you forgot that you learned care from your sister, or that your brother taught you to fight back, that your friends showed you the meaning of protection, and that lovers taught you limits. So who cares if it's only yourself that you can think of? Only yourself can show you the way home.
To that a bit. Linda will now give.
Can I read my favorite thing from his latest book? And
Yeah, cool.
So the day after you died, you woke up and made breakfast as usual. You knew you had a lungful of water, but you could breathe, and that's what mattered. You don't know how, but you realized that you were lost. You knew that you must begin to search for answers. You were lured out by the rumor of treasure, buried under a sea of sound. A single clue was pinned to the fridge. The path home always begins by leaving. So you left the house, never to return. Kijana, do you know that traveling with a lungful of water is a punishable offense? Si kupenda kwangu ofisa, niliamka nikajipata tu hivi. Ukajipata, kijana, you must carry me foolish. Kwani mtu anaweza jipata tu na mali mingi hivi? I swear hata mimi am only looking for a way to extract it. Ati extract, nimeona wengi like you claiming that the world made them this way, that who they are is not a product of any of their actions, that they have been reacting to the ways in which society shapes them, as if society is not a collection of individuals vocalizing their way to freedom, as if they were the only ones who died and woke to a lungful of water, as if society isn't built by people who spend every morning coughing up a river. Anyway, you're still small fry. I once met a minister who had to take his oxygen through a drip because his lungs had stopped working. So I'm going to let you off with a warning. Kachai nitakunywa. So I thought that was really amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, I know cops.
Kukutana na watu wa
Just the
Madrid.
dynamics of that. Was the cop dead as well in this realm of deadness?
So, guys, first of all, I'm a poet, right? So obviously it's all metaphorical. So I don't know if the cop was dead or not. In fact, you're the one who made me think about like, oh shit, like someone could think this is actual death.
We'll go to Linda, who will read something from Mtama Road. We're publishing Mtama Road next month. It's been illustrated by Anita Kavochi, who's also an amazing illustrator that we really love. There are two illustrators in yeah, my bad. There are two illustrators in that book, and one is a surprise illustrator. Linda will talk about him. So take it away.
So I'm reading an excerpt from Kamatana. She was sat in between her mother's legs, having Kamatanas undone with the custom air, and a lady came to the veranda to hand out free 250 ml sachets of a new brand of fabric softener. The sachet was purple, a bit sturdy, but the smell of the liquid seeped out strong. Medusa's mother's hands were full with hair, so with the comb between her teeth, she told the lady to give the sachet to the girl to hold, and thank you so much. When I finish the sachet, I'll get a bottle from the kiosk. No, this one is high class. You can find the brand only in valid stores and supermarkets. It's written on the packet, said the lady, batting eyelashes and eyelids. Are kiosks invalid then? Said Medusa's sarcastic mother, and really pulled on the hair like it was the reason for everything and nothing the softener lady had said and implied. Medusa, on reflex, squeezed the sachet until it burst, because what was that new pain never known before by her head? That's when she realized her mother really and truly cared about the high-class softener. Her mother didn't say a word, just stood up, startling the sales lady, who hurried off, went into the house and came back with a pair of scissors. She started cutting the hair, big chunks falling on the softener already on Medusa's nylon dress and pin-needled legs. Our clothes always smell like maftata. Okay, sorry. Our clothes always smell like maftata. Na hii kitu na harufu yake ingesaidia kuficha. But you had to squeeze it all onto yourself. Attention must be yours. So now, since you have the lavender scent, I'm taking the other thing that makes you more special than everyone in this house. We can't even breathe. It's always your difficult, rich hair, and you're ungrateful enough to hate how it feels on your head, as if it ever felt different on any other girl's head. It hurts for all of us. Cut, hot-combed, with hairpiece, under a wig, with curly kit, or even perm, whichever way hair hurts. Even after I cut all of it, it will hurt your head and then grow back into the most painful chaos. Yes, it hurts when it grows too. You learn to endure it. If you can't, you go try and become a man. But the world doesn't need more. So learn to endure without disruption and selfishness. There's no way out of your own hair. None. Medusa didn't flinch or cry for her hair when it was being annihilated and shouted at. Akili sio nywele, cut all of it as if I care. Until she went out of her house, and she was no longer Medusa but Kipara. At school, she was not just Kipara but Kiparangoto. And her head ate many ngotos at break time and lunchtime. Everyone rapped on it when she was sitting, when she was standing, when she was bending, when she drank from the taps. Ngoto after ngoto after ngoto by friend and foe. Her head hurt as it did when she had hair on it. When the wind shocked her kipara, all that static made it feel like a razor blade pendulum was swinging across and back. Her mother had said there was no way out of her hair, but Kipara, formerly known as Medusa, wanted the whole head off. Dead or alive, whatever life she would get without it, and its things would certainly be better.